everybody. Welcome to InPsightRadio. I am your host, Danielle Egnew, and you are a fly on the wall to everywhere. Happy week. My goodness, we've got so much going on. I mean, we're still in January of 2020, and there is so much going on in the world. Every day you wake up, the headlines are different, and we're still wondering what's going on with the impeachment. I mean, people are literally hanging on the edges of their seat, or they're not. And really, it's interesting because when you get saturated with a whole bunch of weird and terrible news, after a long period of time, people begin to detach, right? We begin to say, I don't want to listen to this anymore. I can't do it. And there is a strategy in world domination to hitting people with headlines and hitting people with really terrible news over and over again, to the point where people are numb to it and to the point where people feel demoralized. So they don't come out of their shells. They don't go forward to change the world. They're too tired, And I know many people, especially here in the United States, holy moly, I know many people who just don't even listen to the news anymore, who have canceled their newspaper subscriptions. They might get online and look on BBC to see what's happening on the world stage, yet people are detaching from this constant barrage of chaos and freak out and weirdness and oh my God, and the constant rile up. Because really, we as human beings are not designed to be immersed in a full tilt state of chaos, fear, adrenaline rushes 24/7. I mean, we just can't be. Our systems will start to break down. And many authoritarian regimes actually around the world, they specialize in breaking people down with really bad news, because then people are too bummed out and they can't go forward and they don't organize and they don't get their lives together. And everybody just trudges with this emotional tiredness day in and day out. And we in the United States, we've had our moments of emotional tiredness. The Vietnam War was certainly one of those moments. We've had moments after 9/11 where we were all walking around shell-shocked and bell-rung that even happened in our country. Yet what we're really encountering on a global stage right now is this really intriguing plan. And it is a plan, gang, and I'll get to why in a minute. I got the angel who walks with the world here, so we're going to talk a little about what's going on behind the scenes with our world events and why there is so much chaos being put forward right now and what we can do about it. Because the bottom line is, gang, we're doing great as a species. We as human beings are becoming more compassionate. We are becoming more understanding. The great experiment to get Americans to hate one another based on political party worked from about 2016 to really the end of 2019. And there are still people out there who love to hate you if you're a Republican, who love to hate you if you're a Democrat. And those people have always been that way. So this grand scheme to get everybody divided really was just working on a modality that was already there. However, when we look at the world stage, we are seeing world markets losing tons and tons of money. Okay? Now, I have people saying to me, Danielle, how can you say that? The American stock market has been doing pretty well under this current president. People have been making a lot of money, blah, blah, blah. Well, let me tell you something, gang. The whole stock market hasn't been doing well. There have been some stocks that have been doing very well. There have been other stocks that have been limping along like somebody shot them in a leg with an arrow. And those are the stocks that deal with anything but oil. Honestly, we've had our stock market is a complete and total, how do I put this, watchable variant to where our interest lies. So we put our money where our interest lies. The stock market reacts to that. If people are afraid of businesses doing poorly, they pull their stock out. The stocks fall in price. People lose money who are investors there. So really, the stock market is a giant popularity contest with money. Who do we think is going to be the most profitable, right? So there's this big money movement that's happening in the world right now. And because we're missing money in places that we shouldn't. And let me explain what I'm talking about. Why is there this global push to keep people in chaos and in fear? And it's not just authoritarian regimes, although they're really good at doing that. Why is there this global push to keep people in this accelerated space of adrenaline rush and instability where we're worn down and people aren't sure what to do? Why? Well, when people aren't sure what to do and we're not sure if we're going to go right or left, we actually stop spending money. People stop spending money when they're freaked out and they save it and they sit on it. So when we stop spending money, we go into what's called a recession. And that's generally, again, just a marker on where people are at. So here we've had this teetering recession going on at the same time that we have a stock market that in certain ways is exploding. So really, if you look at the math of that, if you look at the economics of that, that doesn't really work out. Now, we've not been in an official recession. You haven't heard that term on the news, yet people aren't making the money they were making. You know, they're not spending the money they were spending. It's none of that is happening right now. So what we're seeing is a pretty dedicated problem on an imbalance of where the money is going. So here, everybody's getting scared. Nobody's spending money. They're all sitting on the money. Now, what does that mean? You'd think, well, that's bad for business. Not if I'm a bank. Are you kidding? If I'm a bank, I don't want you to spend your money. Because see, if you take money out of, I'm the bank, right? And you're Bob and you're Jane, and you both put $100 in me. So I've got $200. And your money just sits in there. Well, then I'm the bank. So I take your $200 and then I go invest it all over the place and I make myself money with your money. Oh, by the way, and then I pay you 0.0000002% interest on your checking account or your bank account or your savings or whatever. But I'm making money with your money. That's why I like having your $200. So if everybody's being scared to death and you're leaving your money with me, then you're not out there buying shoes or buying boots or taking a trip to Cancun. I got to keep your money and I got to make money on your money. So if I'm a bank, really people being afraid of a recession is a good thing because then I take my money and then I stick it in the stock market. And I'm being this is very wide brushstrokes to how this all works because obviously your bank isn't going right to your, deposit and then taking that money out and spending it, That's why a run on the bank is such a big deal. Because if we all went and withdrew our money immediately from one location, that bank would unlikely have all that money available to give you because it's out in investments, it's out in loans. It's a credit union means it's out in other people's houses. So when we're talking about fear that's going around, this is 100% related to money. So I'm the bank, I invest in the stock market. Well, the stock market in certain areas is doing really well. So I'm making money on the money that you're not spending because you think there might be a recession. You are responding to being tired, worn out, drug over the coals, beat up emotionally by crazy, chaotic headlines. And the way that demonstrates itself in the United States is a drop in spending because we just don't spend that money. Where you see more money being spent during crazy freakout times like we've been having, you see more alcohol sales, you see more eating out, you see more vanity purchases here and there. People are trying to do something to take their mind off of how crappy things are. The film industry goes way up in times of, wartime or duress because people need to get away from all of the garbage that's out there, right? So there is this need to keep people freaked out because everybody's making money hand over fist. Now, here's the funny thing. Our stock market is going to take a belly dive because the United States of America is spending money that it doesn't have, and it's going to continue to do that until it's seen as a bad risk for lending, and all of that's going to tank, then our market tanks. Our market is a secondary It's like a symptom. It's a symptom of a larger problem. So when our stock market collapses or it starts to go low or it starts to get weird, that's a symptom that something else in the eco structure socioeconomically in America with the confidence of people buying and selling is bad. It's like recognizing that if you have a rash, you might have a fever. It's a symptom of something else. So we've got a lot coming on the world stage, and we keep trying to sign these trade deals, and we keep trying to do this and trying to do that. Yet we have extended ourselves. We are trillions of dollars in debt under the Trump administration. We are partying on money that doesn't even exist. That's going to get passed to the next president. It's so interesting because this administration and the people that support this president oftentimes are not aware of the fiscal issues, or they just don't care because this president is such an odd duck in the way that he deals with the public and really national issues, that people really aren't paying that much of attention to the fact that there is so much crap going on Twitter that we are bankrupting ourselves as the United States of America, which is true. So pretty much we're like 2 seconds from being totally bankrupt, which is going to, again, affect our credit rating on the global stage. It's going to affect our loanability, which then affects how much people want to invest in us, which then affects us doing business with other people, which then affects the stock market, and the stocks drop. This hasn't happened yet, but it will. Just hang in there. So, when we look at all this fear and people trying to control the world money, what was I talking about earlier when I said we're missing a bunch of money? Well, let me tell you. We have a generation of people, 2 generations actually, Gen Y and the millennials, coming up who really don't have the same addiction to stuff that Gen X, myself, Gen X, or the baby boomers had. And I remember being a kid in the 80s and watching, the yuppies. And it was a thing to it was like a thing to be worshipped. If you were the kid who had 3 or 4 polo shirts on, the 80s were all about huge excess. Drugs, sex, stuff, whatever. And really, my generation was the very last one where blowing it out to have ostentatious stuff all the time, giant houses, 15 great big cars, thousands of Rolexes that you wore up your arm and flaunted. I mean, it just sounds asinine, doesn't it? Here we're like struggling with clean air and clean water, and my God, and we actually thought it mattered to wear 5 and 6 swatches up your arm in the 80s. What a consciousness change we'd been in. Yet, we have these 2 generations that are coming forward who spiritually are designed to come in and work on a barter system. So there are so many people who are not working, and they are not buying houses, and they are living in tents, or they are living in yurts, or I can't even tell you, millions and millions of people, and I'm not saying you have to be Gen Y or a millennial to live in a yurt. I know a lot of people who are boomers who live in yurts. Go yurts! I'm just simply saying we are seeing a phenomenon where there's a couple of generations here that are not addicted to the almighty dollar like many of the generations before them. They don't care if they have 1 pair of underpants that they wash in a creek and hang on a stick. I mean, they have watched the excess of the generations that came before them, and they have zero interest in playing. They have listened to their parents go on and on about the mortgage and fight about money and how much of our credit card bill did we pay. And there is a huge number of this generation saying, yeah, I don't really want to be part of all that crap. Sorry. No. And again, I'm certainly not suggesting that everyone who is a millennial lives in a yurt in the woods. I'm simply saying the millennials are worried, and so is Gen Y and Gen Z. That group of people, and many of us who are Gen X and many baby boomers, are worried about the condition of the planet, not how much my stocks are making me. So we literally have 2 operating systems here. We have one that is money, that drives itself just for the money, and we have another compassionate, amazing operating system that's emerging into the world through these generations, where these younger folk just don't want to play. So they're not even on the grid. And I'm seeing now a lot of people in my generation, I'm 50, and I'm seeing a lot of people in my generation who are selling their great big houses that they bought in the 90s because they thought that was a good idea. And as they're seeing their energy bills roll in, and as they're looking at world events, are downsizing to these little cute houses that are really amazing. And they're donating a lot of their clothing to homeless shelters and to women's shelters. We're seeing a stewardship emerge in the world. So going back to the point of where's all the money? Well, we're just not spending it. Okay. Not only are we not spending it, we have huge portions of the population that have no desire to even earn it because they see money as the root of what has destroyed our planet. They see money as the root of all evil. And you hear about these employment stats all the time, and every president loves to boast about how their unemployment is the lowest, blah, blah, blah. It's interesting. My wife is a small business owner, and my best friends are small business owners here in Montana. And they were talking about the fact that it was really, really hard to find help. And I have some friends who own a hotel, and they were talking about how difficult it was, to find someone who wanted to clean rooms. And they were offering, pretty decent money for that type of a job, an hour. And they still could not find the people who wanted to clean the rooms. And a lot of the employees that they had were people who were in their 50s and 60s coming to do these jobs. They were interviewing a lot of younger folks who looked at the amount of time it took to clean a whole room up and clean a toilet, and they're doing the math. And okay, well, if that's $15-16 an hour, do I really want to give that much of my day up to clean a toilet for that much money? No, I'll pass. And instead, you've got these generations of people who work on a barter system. And so, again, I'm hitting some major, just big brushstrokes here just to make sure to get all of these concepts out during the podcast. Please believe me, I am not saying millennials don't work. That is not what I'm saying. I'm saying that the priority is different for these younger generations because they view the sociopathic consumerist system as the problem, as what's eating our earth, and they're right. So, we've got this weird stat in our nation that unemployment is at an all-time low. Well, here's the other thing. We have a lot of jobs that aren't being filled, okay? People simply are not stepping up and wanting to work at them. So that's going to make for a pretty low, unemployment rate because it's not like those folks are going out there and registering for unemployment. They are just choosing not to work in that job. So we've got some jacked up national stats, and I look at all this and I think, oh man, in about 3 years when the accounting comes in on all of this is going to be so crazy. It's going to be so crazy. So here we've got this fear consciousness rolling around, trying to keep the money in one place. Yet we really don't have enough people to do the jobs. And we've had this bizarre myth in America, which, hey, I need to preface this next statement because I'm going to make a comment on higher education here. And I want to preface this statement with the knowledge that I believe that education is amazing in any way that you get it. I believe that edifying the mind is a phenomenal gift to yourself and to others whose lives you will touch with this incredible knowledge, okay? So I'm not begging on higher education. I am begging on the bull crap that's been put out about how if you don't have a college degree, you cannot get a job and you cannot succeed in America. That is pure marketing trash. Now, at one time, in the 40s or the 50s or the 60s, maybe even the 70s, maybe even the 80s, that was true. However, what we've done is we've turned people away from trade jobs and from learning in trade jobs. So when you go to the newspaper and you open it up and you're looking for jobs, there are so many plumber, bricklayer, concrete pourer, willing to train because nobody has apprenticed in these areas because they were told that was just a rotten blue collar thing to do. And you have to go get your degree. Now, look, again, nothing wrong with a degree. But what a freaking scam, man. I am Gen X. We are the generation who have hundreds of thousands of dollars of student loan debt that was literally sold. Our loans were sold from one person to the next, to the next, to the next. And each time the interest rate jumped up. So we could never catch those loans. And we might have borrowed $25,000 and now we owe $180, So I do have strong feelings about student loans because they're loan sharking. And you're loan sharking at a point where a student is young and isn't even thinking about that stuff and is trying to start their life and they just want to be able to stay in school. So who cares about $150,000 worth of loans, which will be, $600,000 by the time they're resold. And I personally don't have any student loan debt. I had scholarships and I had a small loan that I was lucky enough to pay off when I was younger. However, we've got, again, the myth of money in this country. Everybody wants to make $1 million. And when I look into the hubris and when the angel who walks with the world shows me what's going on out there, seriously, you guys, I honest to God wish, gang, that I had some kind of HDMI port in the base of my skull and I could just plug right in a cable and just live stream it and say, look at this. Talking about the spiritual, the psychic stuff that I see in the future is what I'm saying. I wish I could just show it all to you about what a freaking scam we've been sold in the United States about how our money works. Because money is on the other end of our interest or desire. Money is an energy. It is a tide. It is a current. It is a flow that opens up more space for other flow. And when you start telling people, well, you can't make money like that. If you make money as a ditch digger, that's dumb money. You have to make money as a stockbroker or an accountant or a white-collar worker. And a lot of those modalities came from parents whose bodies were broken by non-union environments with unjust employers breaking their bodies apart to earn 5 cents. I mean, a lot of the reason that we believe that blue-collar jobs are no good is because a lot of times they weren't that good, And so these desires to create a space where our children could go learn and make more money and better themselves and whatever, their desire to want their children to go to college was coming from a great place if you were a parent. But that's not the world we live in anymore. And education is astronomically expensive. And if you're going to be a doctor or a lawyer or a teacher or somebody who works in astrophysics, you need a degree, right? Yeah. What about all the people who aren't wired for that? So again, now we have this really crazy, interesting, top-heavy problem of a bunch of people in the United States, because this podcast is about money. It's about the money, the flow of money in the United States, and what that means for the spiritual wellness of this country. That's what the podcast is about. So when we look at all of this student loan debt, and we look at younger generations who just won't take those loans because they've heard their parents talk about the loans, we are looking at underattended universities. We are looking at universities who are in financial trouble because it is so freaking expensive to go there. $25,000 a year on the cheap end. If you want to go in-state to tuition here in Montana, I think it's 14 or 15 grand a year in-state tuition. So, by that time, you're looking at, about 60 grand to graduate if you're not getting any scholarships or anything. And then that's getting into an interest-bearing account. So we're basically designing our workforce. If I'm a money person, if I'm a sociopathic money person, I'm designing an army of people that are continually going to keep me fed through the interest rates on their student loans by shaming them into believing that they need a white-collar degree to make a living for themselves and their family. And again, there's lots of folks out there who are going to college and love it, and that's awesome. And do your thing, people. You do you. I am talking about the spirit of money and why things have been manipulated the way that they have. So now in America, we have a massive shortage of tradespeople. Huge. I mean, glaringly huge. And a lot of these trade jobs start, because they're union, they start at a much better wage than a lot of the white-collar jobs with a degree are now paying. It's We've now gotten so out of balance with what money is in the United States. And we're partying on money, like I said, that we don't really have. We're waiting for that market to collapse once everybody figures out that America is actually broke, which the world kind of knows, but nobody wants to admit, because once we go broke, that really does affect the rest of the world. And so nobody really wants to get involved in that until we start asking for some financial favors, because we aren't doing well. The money health of the United States is not anything like you hear it is in our news broadcasts. People, this is the first, I think my generation, Gen X, it's the first time, we're the first generation that is not going to do better than our parents, in a long time. And many of us are going to be in a position of supporting our children and our parents, in that sandwich generation. And that's really what our parents were. Our parents, the baby boomers, as Gen X emerged into a climate of recession in the 90s, there were no jobs for a lot of these folks who had come out of college. There just weren't any jobs. So they were living home with mom and dad. So mom and dad, the boomers, were supporting Gen X while Gen X was starting their own businesses. And again, I proudly say that we are the largest generation of entrepreneurs to ever emerge in America. Gen X. All your Elon Musks and everybody else, because we just couldn't really, get a job, man. So we had to figure out what to do. Yet when we look at the flow of energy of money, and we look at how there is a desperation to control it, when I look behind that, it's because there isn't enough flow right now. And you're not going to hear about that in the news, but hear this. Okay, hear this. There isn't enough flow. There's a lot of people, as we discussed, who don't want to go into traditional jobs, so they're not buying houses. There might be 5 or 6 people living in one apartment because they don't really want to commit to this consumerist lifestyle. They don't want to. They'd rather go travel. They'd rather have money, but they'd rather have that money spent in experiences. That generation is coming up, a lot of them, the millennials, Gen Y, Gen Z. Even my generation of people are not big, huge stock market people. I know a few of my peers who they're crazy with the stock market and 401ks and all that. Yet just as, taking that money and traditionally putting it in the stock market, we generationally have been moving away from that kind of flow. And keep in mind that money has been who determines who's in charge of the world. So all of a sudden we have this consciousness coming in going, God, I really don't want to play anymore. F you, consumerism. And we are changing our priorities. We are downsizing, not because it's some righteous hippie thing to do, but people are indigenously feeling in their guts, in their indigenous beings. They are feeling that it's the wrong thing to do to continue to pile on excess. Now, why is that? Well, because, as we talk about DNA on this program a lot, we are having those DNA shifts where our DNA is responding to changes in our current environment, okay? So we know there's something weird with the air. We know there's something weird with the water. We sure as heck know there's something weird with the weather. And when there is catastrophic change biologically, our DNA says to us, hey, man, you better store stuff up because crap could get real and you need something to draw on. So again, we hang on to our money. We hang on to our things. We sell things we no longer need to create liquid assets. So what are we looking at in a world that's missing money? And, it's kind of a funny concept, right? Because if I'm a business and I want to hire 9 employees, but I can't find anybody who wants to work for what I can afford to pay them. And gang, I'm not talking Walmart, who could probably fork up a little more money to people. I'm talking, there are so many small businesses in America. Small businesses are actually the backbone of America, but all we ever hear about is corporate business. That's what all the stocks are writing on. Yet small businesses are what most people make their living on, and they do it because it's a passion. They do it because they can be their own boss. They can employ their children. And if you're a small business owner, you're paying payroll taxes. You are paying Social Security. You're not just paying a wage. You're paying all of this back end to the government for the privilege of hiring people. okay? And I don't know if you know that or not, but it's true. If you go work for a small business, what's coming out of their checking account to have you there is not just you being there. Again, there's Social Security, there's payroll taxes, there's all kinds of stuff that goes out. There's unemployment, there's all kinds of stuff there. So when we talk about missing money, if I'm a business, I need employees working for me to be able to make me money, to pay the employees, and to pay my house payment and whatever. Well, if people aren't stepping up to take the job, and maybe I can only afford to pay $12, $15 an hour, and maybe it's a really simple job, maybe it's part-time, just sweeping a floor or something like that. Maybe I pay $20 an hour, but it's a limited position, and people just can't swing that, so nobody comes and takes my job. So I'm trying to do it all as a small business person. Then I get burnt out, and I can't keep my doors open anymore. What do? Well, I close my business, right? I cut my overhead. I close my business. Well, now I'm a small business owner who has no job. So I go to work for the Walmart. I go to work for the Target. I go to work for the corporate business because now I need to provide for my family. And so I go to work for them. And what's literally happening, and again, I'm using some really big brushstrokes to get a point across, is that the spirit of our nation is turning people away from owning their own businesses. There is an avarice for money. There are 8 or 9 main money groups out there in the world, and they want all the money, and they want it all in their little grubby hands. So they make it very inhospitable for smaller businesses to thrive. And the way that we use money as a weapon in this country is crazy. So it's really it's time to start using this money and the flow and the way to inspire. It's time to start using money as a catalyst. And how do we do that? Well, now keep in mind, companies like a Walmart or like an Amazon or any larger company. And Amazon was just a little company at first, and now it's humongous. And its stocks are like ridiculous. They're like $1,000 a share or something. I mean, it is truly out of control. So what does that say about our country? Well, it says everybody's on mail order, right? Yet if we look at this, what does this say? If so much of our commerce is being, quite honestly, manipulated, and the system is being stacked in a way that asks people to give up their own vision, their own dreams, their own businesses to go work for these monolithic, quote, stable, end quote, places. What does that say? It says, desperation, 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 desperation. They're very desperate. That's what it says. What it says is there is money missing out of this system, and they are trying to drive everybody they can to be that employee, to sell their stuff. Yes, they have to pay that employee, but that means more people are buying their wares because they have more people to get out there, more stores to open, blah, blah, blah. You see how this works? So this isn't meant to be an economics lesson. It's meant to tell you guys, and listen, gang, this is all about, ladies, listen, this is all about understanding how the flow of intention works through money and how it's been used to control us and to cut down our opportunities and to hew away bridges that we could be making in the United States of America in order to control more of the money so a limited pool of people can have their hands on it. So what does that mean? It means that if we're going to look at money not as a weapon, yet as a catalyst for change, let's also look where we spend our money, because money is an energy. Where do you put your energy? Most of us put a lot of it in our gas tank. There it is. There's our fossil fuel issue. And, I do try to drive a lot less, yet I still drive my car. Now, I do live in a smaller town, even in Montana, even though my town of Billings, Montana is the largest city in Montana. It's not that big. And I don't drive around all that much. And in the summertime, I am on my bike like you wouldn't believe. I do drive in the winter. There are people who bike in the winter. and 40 below with special tires, and they are superheroes, and I am not that cool, okay? I just get in my Jeep. I drive a Jeep Cherokee. It's not super stellar on gas. It's not a gas hog. It's right in the middle. It's not great, and it's not terrible. So where do you put your money? Where do you put your intentions? When you go to the grocery store, are you able to put some of your money into local produce sellers? Are you able to get some of your produce from organic buyers who might do a vegetable basket type of business? And, a lot of people, again, look at our organic growers, they're over a barrel because our food producers, our big Monsantos, our great big giant, I live in an agriculture state, so we hear a lot about this. All of these big producers of these big GMOs, they want the small farms to die out. They want to make it more difficult to call yourself organic so that people just, to save $1, go and buy the cheaper stuff, which is gross, right? And listen, hey, you gotta operate on the budget that you have. I get that. I live in a state, I think we're like, I'm going to get the wrong stat, but we're way low. We're like 42nd in wages or something in Montana out of 50 states. I mean, we're pretty terrible. We're not way up there. And our cost of living, even though we don't have sales tax, is not cheap because groceries aren't super cheap up here. Produce isn't super cheap. We touch Canada, so everything has to get trucked up. So the point I'm making about all of this is, where do you put your energy? Where do you put your flow? Where do you put your money? Now that you can kind of get a picture of how, manipulated we've all been, blah, 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 consumerist America, blah. Well, what do we do about it? First and foremost, know that wherever you put your energies, prosperity is going to follow. And the government and big business may make it more difficult for you to do business as a small business person. If you're a sole proprietor like I am, of course I pay taxes like everybody else, but I don't have a huge overhead and lots of employees and like a brick and mortar business would. And it's important to note that where we put our energy and our money is also going to dictate where our country flows. And our biggest protests, if we really, really wanted to protest, just really protest, the way to go about it would be for the entire country for one day to not buy gasoline from, and just go down the line. Maybe that's no BP day, and that's going to be sucky for the person who owns the gas station that day for sure. Go in and buy treats and snacks, but you don't buy gas for one day. One day you don't buy it from Exxon, the whole country, That's going to be tough because we have trucking companies, we have transportation companies, people need that gasoline to earn their living. Taxis, Uber. Yet, this is an example that if something like that happened, or if we all decided, you know what, I love my Nikes. Yet, oh no, we just found out that they're built or constructed in some strange country under strange conditions. And I don't know if that's true or not, but I'm just using that as an example. I'm not trying to rag on Nike. I'm just saying, if we stopped putting the energy through the money into those products, if we protested through a lack of participation, instead of resisting, we just withheld, that would change the rudder of this country fairly immediately. I always say, this is not a realistic projection, what I'm about to say, yet it's theoretical. And that if every single person in the United States, including businesses, just didn't pay any taxes, period. Nobody did. Like no one. That would be horrible for our military and our roads, and there's reasons we can't do that. But if we all just didn't pay taxes, man, I guarantee you Washington, D.C. would listen, the banks would listen, everybody be listening because there'd be no more money. There's no money to run anything. So at the same time, we talk about, okay, the flow of money can be manipulated to manipulate Americans and to blah, 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 and all over the world. It's not just here. Oh my God. I have friends in Australia, and I was hearing from them about what they feel is a massive misappropriation of funds in Australia. Here, Australia is burning up like a marshmallow that's fallen into a campfire. And they've got all this weird money they're spending like America does on sports teams and on this and on that, but they didn't prepare for fire season very well as a country, apparently. Now, I don't live in Australia. I have not called up the Prime Minister and said, what's going on in Australia? This is what I'm told. And I also look and see in Australia, they struggle with the same stuff we do here in America. They struggle with a very few people wanting all that money. So poor Australia's burning up because they don't have anywhere. They don't have any backup. So when we look at the world and what it's doing, if we look at our flow of money and where we place it in the world, it's going to make a difference. Believe me. We don't think that our money makes a difference. But let me draw this back to small business owners. And again, my wife is a small business owner. And if she has a few clients decide that they don't want to go to her fitness studio anymore, those few clients, because she's not a Walmart, make a huge difference in her monthly revenue. And they make a huge difference in paying people, how many sessions she can have, just those few people. Now, we think as consumers that our money doesn't make a dang difference, but it does. It does. So put your money where your conscience can sleep at night. Put your money, stretch ourselves a little bit. In this year of evolution, let's stretch ourselves to buy and put our money towards things we truly believe in. And this gets dicey because look at our huge political franchises, the DNC, the RNC. What are they constantly doing? Fundraising, fundraising, fundraising. Give us money, give us money, give us money. We can't elect a president if you don't give us money. We need money for canvassers. We need money for people. We need money for placards and for signs which is true. Yet again, basically what that tells America is what elects presidents. Money. Well, duh, right? So money is where energy flows. So this week, I would love you to have some fantastic personal goals. And I would love those personal goals to be designed around where you're going to break up your normal routine to put your money and the energy of your purpose and the flow of who you are behind what you truly believe in. Now, does that mean that you're going to drive an extra 2 miles to get to the co-op that sells vegetables? And does that mean you're going to get up a little earlier because that co-op might only operate on limited hours on the weekend? Does that mean you're going to actually make part of your routine, maybe going and maybe going down to a particular exercise regimen or compound or whatnot that affects the community in a different way? Not to say you shouldn't support big business, gang. That's not what I'm saying. I am saying, where do we put our energy and why? Where do we put our money? Because I will guarantee you, and here's kind of the third act of this podcast or what this is all building up to. We are going to be driven to get rid of more money, spend more money, get it back out into the lucrative platform by the people who are freaking out that they can't find the money because we're sitting on the money right now, except for the banks. They're happy about it. But there are other businesses that are not. And we are going through, Christmas, I think, was a huge spending year this year. And that's what we tend to do. When we're depressed and freaked out, we buy stuff because it's proven that when you buy something, it releases chemicals in the brain that are uppers. It's a happy chemistry. And that's why there's shopaholics, because buying things jacks up your brain chemistry. Okay? So what I'm saying is we are going to have some turn of events in the United States in 2020, in our year of evolution. Well, we're going to be being basically told that there are certain things that we need to buy. And that's going to come in the form of fear-mongering and making it seem like we need certain things because if we don't get these certain things, it's going to be, be all and end all, et cetera, and so on. So just remember when we see some weird fear-mongery stuff coming through the news that a lot of that is just sad and weird and move on and don't take it too seriously, okay? Because what we're being asked to do is where do you direct your intentions? Where do you put your money? And, I'm not saying this to shame anybody. I'm asking you, make that list of what can you do? And even if it's 2 or 3 things, gang, 2 or 3 things, I want you to think of my wife's business. 2 or 3 things make a huge difference when there are millions and millions and millions of us. And if you are able to support that small business, and that small business is able to support employees, and those employees are able to go out and support other small businesses, and those small businesses have good wages, then what we're doing is we are putting the energy. And again, I'm using small business. There's bigger businesses out there that are great, and they donate a lot of their proceeds back to the environment. And so it's not all about, ooh, evil big business. I'm using the example of small business because what we're being asked to do at this time is look past our convenience. We are being asked by the angel that walks with the world. We are being asked by the individual angels that walk with each one of us. We are being asked by our conscience. We are being asked by our spirit. We are being asked by the very DNA that is changing in our bodies to absorb all this weirdness out there in the ethers and to change enough to be able to fortify us to move forward. We are being asked, where are we willing to give up just one or two conveniences? Would you rather spend another $1.50 and buy some paper straws instead of plastic ones? So little baby seagulls aren't getting their eyeballs poked out in the water. Are you willing to drive that extra 3 miles to find the co-op? Are you willing to join a co-op? Are you willing to support the grass-fed, grass-finished beef suppliers? Are you ready to put your money, is that going to inconvenience you? Because does that mean less lattes? Does that mean, wow, well, maybe I get my, nails done every other week instead of every week? Where are we willing to give up just, make a list of 3 conveniences you're willing to give up. We'll probably cough up 2, maybe 1, and consistently do it. It's going to mean changing life patterns, gang. Yet this is what 2020's year of evolution is trying to train us on. Because if we don't get busy on handling our addiction to convenience, which is what this big money market has done, hey, have a hamburger for 99 cents. It's made of pink slime. There's no food value in it. I mean, there maybe is, but it's not even really food, but you can get it for 99 cents and it tastes good because we put corn syrup filled ketchup all over it and a pickle. Yeah, we have literally been trained to save money by eating cheaply, and the food we're eating is killing us, which sends us to the doctor, which is expensive. Now we have cancer because now we've eaten all this crap for so long. So now we got to go to cancer treatment. So all those dollar hamburgers, so to speak, has resulted in $80,000 worth of chemotherapy that our insurance only pays a teeny portion of. Do you see how this works? Okay. Now, obviously, that's a little bit of a histrionic example. However, it's kind of true, though, you guys. And ladies, it's a crazy thing when we look, gang, into our world and realize that our money determines the flow of consciousness. I want you to hear that. Our money determines our flow of consciousness or unconsciousness. Am I unconscious about the fact that the pink slime I'm eating actually has no food value? Am I unconscious about the fact that this car I'm driving is barfing so much CO2 into the air? Am I unconscious about the fact that the 6 trees I cut down on my property just because I wanted a better view just took homes away from animals and a bunch of oxygen out of the air? And that trees are the answer to our global warming issue? Trees? If we could plant millions and millions of trees, it will eat all of that nastiness out of the air? Hello? I mean, what are we choosing to be unconscious about with our money? One that's a tough one, and I will admit this one. I will come forward. My name is Danielle Egnew, and I struggle with Hobby Lobby. There it is. I admit it. I'm coming forward. Here in Billings, there are not a lot of art supply places. There's like Michael's, there's Hobby Lobby. There used to be some local art supply places in town. And then when the big box stores came in, they ate our local art stores. So you can find a few, really great pieces here and there tucked away in other stores, but we really don't have a lot of local art supply stores anymore. So, and most artists don't make a lot of money. And by the time, again, we've got these large big box stores driving down the prices on brushes and canvases and all this. And then you have not that buying power when you're the local art store. So you're not getting the items for the discount that Michael's is. So you have to mark it up, and then people go to Michael's, because I don't know many super rich artists, do you? So, it's just a crappy cycle that we're in this nation. So why am I talking about struggling with Hobby Lobby? Well, as we know, there's a lot of really weird business tenets that the owner of Hobby Lobby adheres to. There's not a barcode in there. I mean, there are these women cashiers. I've yet to see a male cashier at a Hobby Lobby. And there are women cashiers, and they are literally typing the numbers in like it's 1975. Okay? And I think that's really interesting, because when you don't have a barcode system, don't get me started about the taxes and the trackability of all that and whatever. So they're not open on Sundays. The person who started Hobby Lobby is very religious. I'm pretty sure is pretty anti-LGBTQI, as well as pretty misogynistic. And they're closed on Sundays because Sunday is the Lord's Day. So Hobby Lobby, for me personally, it really defies a lot of what I believe in. Yet sometimes in my limited area, there will be products there that I can't get at Michael's, or I can't get at a local store. So I struggle with, okay, as an artist, I need this thing. And half the time as an artist, you're flying by the seat of your pants because the muse hits you and you're struggling to go get whatever that thing is that you need. So, it's tough, because in my area, it will inconvenience me to get online, cool my jets, come out of that artistic high, find what I need online somewhere else, to order it through Michael's or order it someplace else, rather than running down the street and getting it at a Hobby Lobby. So I've really been making a huge effort, for me personally, to break my convenience with Hobby Lobby. And again, if you're a Hobby Lobby shopper, no worries. I have so many friends that love that store. I'm using this as an example for me, okay, about something that challenges where my brain goes. But at the same time, I happen to know some cashiers at Hobby Lobby. And those are really, really nice ladies. And they depend on that job. And a lot of them are single moms. And they depend on that job to make money. So then I'm stuck in this quandary of, okay, wait, if money is an execution of consciousness or unconsciousness, and I go to Hobby Lobby because I'm in a desperate artistic freak out to get something I need in that moment, and that's the only place I can get it in Billings, Montana, then am I defying my consciousness that says my consciousness goes where my money goes? Am I choosing to be unconscious about where they put all that money, where they invest it, whose campaigns they finance? Or, is my consciousness saying, well, I can't get this thing anywhere else, and my friend works there, and if I quit going altogether and everybody else does too, they close their billing store and my friend is out of a job. So those are real issues, right? However, there are other things I can do, I can find out other places where my friend exerts herself in the community. I can invest in those other areas. I can create balance as I'm taking my consciousness out of this one area. Because the bigger issue with money, gang, is when I take my little dollar bill and I go in and I buy my paintbrush at Hobby Lobby. That dollar has my intention all over it. Did you know that? When you spend money, the money is spent, the intention that you spend that money under is completely transferred to the person taking the money, to the organization taking that money. You know why the stock exchange feels gross and chaotic? It's because people are often desperate and frenzied when they're buying and selling. So it just feels gross. And It's because we transfer our intention with our money. I'm going to say that again. You transfer your intention with your money. Now, when I was playing more music, and I still play music, I'm a musician. I don't play it as much as I wish I played it more, darn it. Party at my house. Bring your BYOB. Party at my house, everybody. What I notice is that when people would come buy a CD of mine, that they would want to support me as an artist. And so they'd hand me $15. I would hand them a CD. And that exchange, that support that came to me, I could feel that in my heart because the money had an intention on it. You know, if you loan a friend money and you have negative intentions on it and you're resentful about it, your friend is going to feel that. Your friend is going to take that money and they're going to put it in their bank account, and then they're going to be fraught with worry, and they're going to be freaked out that they're a constant disappointment. They may or may not be able to get work faster if they're looking for a job. Maybe you loaned them money to cover rent because now they feel like a jerk because this resentment energy came to them. It's very important, gang, that you recognize that when you spend money, your intention is completely attached to it. So, this is why I'm saying our money system, how we spend our money, how we go about our money, all of this is so important because it dictates consciousness. The stock market flies when we're busy in it, okay? Things go on sale when nobody's buying it. When the money's turned away, the price drops, so it draws the money back in. Earning money. When somebody pays you as an employer, if your employer is resentful of their employees, those employees are going to feel that through the garnering of the money. Because money is an energy flow, gang. It's an energy flow. So let's be conscious. Make your list of 3 conveniences that you can basically give up or alter a little bit in how you spend your money. And you might stick to it the first week and notice you're fudging on the second week. But really, remind yourself that this is 2020's year of evolution. And we're going to need to begin to start training ourselves how not to have all these conveniences that we have worldwide. Because I'll tell you something, there's going to come a time, gang, when we're going to have a hell of a lot less conveniences to choose from, okay? And if we are so interdependent on these conveniences that we cannot manage ourselves without them, this is going to get Old West real fast. So if we can be mindful, A, be mindful of the intention in which you spend your money. B, understand that with money flow goes consciousness. So are you conscious or unconscious at where you're placing your energy? And C, let's work on shaving just a few conveniences off to be able to really fortify, especially if you have an opportunity, and I'll tell you this, especially if you have an opportunity to fortify local growers of produce or any kind of farm equipment or local meat producers, chickens that aren't kept in cages and treated inhumanely, that are free range and have good chickie lives until it's time for the end of their life. If you're a meat eating person, our beef backlots, gang, put off so much methane. Our beef addiction, especially in America, adds to global warming like you wouldn't believe. Now, I'm a meat eater. Okay, so I buy, to the best of my ability, grass-fed, grass-finished, free-range beef that's not stuck on a stockyard and all that methane is eating the world. Think of ways that you can cut those conveniences and change the flow of where your consciousness is with your money. And the first place that really starts, gang, is in our noggins. Because the first thing that you're going to do if you're an average American, when you make these changes, and say you do make a change to buy from a local grower, organic produce from a local grower, say you live in New York City, and if you just inconvenience yourself to hop on the subway for a bit, you can get to a local grower, rooftop garden vegetable hoedown. I, honest to God, have no clue what's in New York City, but let's just pretend, okay? And you get down there, and you're grateful to have those incredible vegetables that are going to nourish your body without chemicals in them. And you are able to support that little person who grows those on the rooftop. Your intention is towards health and wellness. And, it's that same old adage. Well, if we all stop buying at Walmart and all those people who work for Walmart wages are turned out into the street, who's going to hire them? I guarantee you there are people. And our dependence on these big megalithic structures, we see them as the Walmarts and I'm picking on Walmart right now, but the Walmarts or the Hobby Lobbies, or we see these companies as gods that have an endless money-making machine and they just give it to us every 2 weeks. But the reason that they are those monolithic money-producing gods is because we patronize them. We go to them. We become patrons of these places. We fund the giants. The giants aren't giants all by themselves, gang. America, UK, Australia, France, the world, Canada. We fund the giants. We are the ones who make the giants. So what do you want to be giant in this world? Do you want clean food, clean meats, clean water, different kinds of clothing manufacturing? What do you want to be the giant? Because you are the creator of it. And I am the creator of it. Right now, Tesla's stock is soaring above GM or Ford. It's the highest rated automobile stock ever. Because what do you think is important? Sustainable vehicles. And yes, of course, then we have the challenge of, well, what do you do with the batteries that come out of the Teslas? That's a thing. But gang, we got to start somewhere, okay? So go ahead and take the 3 bullet point challenge. What are you going to do this week? To limit your convenience, align your spending with your consciousness, to be conscious of the energy you put out, and to be able to fortify with love and support everything you believe in this world. You are a giant maker. What are you going to make giant? I will see you next week.